Paper Mario is a game I'm extremely nostalgic for. I think aesthetically speaking, it might be one of the best aged Nintendo 64 games you could find. Rather than using 3D for its character models and hiding 2D elements in things like trees and snow, they used 2D assets for its character models in a 3D space to create sort of a pop-up storybook aesthetic. Nintendo does have quite the reputation for developing mechanics first, and then basing any sort of story or anything else as a secondary around those mechanics. One reason the style aged so well, in my opinion, is that while the power of the Nintendo 64 limited character models to a very blocky looking appearance, you already had the tech for more artistic looking 2D sprite work. In my opinion, this, aesthetically, artistically speaking, looks better than this. I am on the record praising Ocarina of Time, by the way. My main point is not to bash Ocarina, but just to point out how well the visuals have aged in Paper Mario.
Provided that you're playing it on a CRT television set.
Okay, but I gotta stop beating around the bush. I could talk about chonky-ass, space-wasting, power-sucking CRT television sets till my head falls off. But this is a review of Paper Mario, and to be honest, it's hard to review this game without discussing what comes after it. The elephant in the room is really the fact that there's been a butting of heads between a community of fans of the first two Paper Mario games and Nintendo. I respect Nintendo's freedom to make games however they want, whether or not I actually agree with the direction of the shift. I can always go back to the old games and play them whenever I want. And that's what I'm doing today. Wait, but before I do that, another thing to go over. There is yet another elephant in the room when talking about Paper Mario. Super Mario RPG, the game that pretty much spawns the Action Command RPG idea in the Mario universe. There are a lot of uncanny similarities to Paper Mario and Mario RPG. Now, the source here is Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt. But supposedly, Paper Mario was begun as a sequel to Mario RPG and ultimately went a different direction. But according to some other voices, which I plagiarized from other YouTubers, so, you know, grain of salt, the concept was born when a fucking intern drew a sketch of 2D Mario on a 3D plane, using the Nintendo 64's power to create a pop-up storybook kind of effect. Nintendo and Square Enix had a falling out, where Square brought all of their games to the PS2, so Nintendo sent the floor plan for Mario RPG with the art style we now recognize in Paper Mario over to Intelligent Systems, also known for Fire Emblem and Super Metroid at the time. They proceeded to make the beloved Paper Mario game we know today as Paper Mario. A perfect representation of the story that is not in any way filled with holes or misrepresentations, to be taken
with a grain of shit.
One strange criticism I've heard of the pop-up book aesthetic is that it isn't paper enough. What? Okay, anyway. With all that backstory out of the way, in the words of the nerd himself,
let's play some damn games.
As we start Paper Mario, we're invited to a bougie party at Princess Peach's castle. We see the many cultures of the Mushroom Kingdom gathered together in one place for such a momentous occasion. Here, you can talk to the various kingdom folk and learn about the Mushroom Kingdom. You also get a sneak peek of the layout of the castle, which you'll be seeing later on. You make your way up to the castle, and the next part isn't too surprising at this point, but Bowser has come to kidnap Princess Peach. I guess what makes this part interesting is that the game actually fakes you out by having you lose a battle to him. I shit you not, when I was a kid, I actually thought I got a game over here. I'd say the next hour or so of gameplay sort of dedicates itself to setting up the story and teaching you about the mechanics. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it does a pretty good job of teaching you different aspects of the game without overstaying its welcome. Here, we obtain the hammer, learn about how we need to observe enemy types to make decisions about whether to use the hammer or jump attack. We learn about how we can attack first or be attacked first before the battle even starts by jumping on an enemy or being hit. We even learn about the badge system during all this. There are some overworld antics before we're taught about my favorite part of pretty much any Paper Mario game to this point, the action commands. Okay, so Paper Mario was not the first game to do this. You can look back to Super Mario RPG to find this function, for example. They expand upon it considerably, though. They find some very satisfying ways to do this as well. The simplest method of doing this is pressing A at a certain time, but sometimes you'll be holding down the button. Sometimes you'll be doing a button combination. My favorite, and I think one of the more intuitive mechanisms, is holding the control stick left and letting go to swing your hammer. A very natural and intuitive feeling mechanic. One thing that Paper Mario does very well that I think makes the game very accessible is working itself in really low numbers. Now, I know part of the addictive feedback loop of RPGs is the seemingly endless amount of experience you can gain, starting in low numbers and gaining over and over again till they're practically massive. One of the best executions of this I've seen, for example, was in Persona 5. We'll get to that one eventually. Maybe. Paper Mario still has this sense of progression, much helped by the badge system, but if you start out doing 1 damage, the highest damage you'll ever give is 12. And in Paper Mario, 12 honestly feels huge. By using lower numbers in this way, they maintain the level up feedback loop in a very controlled way without forcing you to grind. Very seldom will you get frustrated. That said, the difficulty is very low, but I do believe there's a place for that, and this game does manage to be easy without being boring. That is part of the balance, though. The simplicity and digestibility is a core part of the Paper Mario identity. Sometimes an easy game that's fun to play is exactly what Dr. Mario ordered.
As long as they aren't babying you.
Done with this tutorial yet? Wanna play? Oh, you want me to come on camera and transition to the next subject? Well, this topic needs no introduction, but badges. Badges really are the bread and butter to the reward system in Paper Mario. There's all sorts of badge types in this game you can use for various effects. Some of them improve stats, many of them add options in the attack menus, and give you different types of attacks to play with. You can use them to improve health and FP. You can even use them to change the sound effects of your hammer. Tinkering with different combinations can be a lot of fun, and you can really get lost in playing with these combinations. But unlike some skill tree games, it's presented in a really simple and easy to understand way, and it never feels overwhelming in the same way some other RPGs might. On the downside, you are limited to how much badge power you're allowed to earn in the game. Yeah, there's a cap. Now what's a great adventure without buddies to enjoy it with, eh? Oh, no. I'm not talking about actual friends. No, this is a single-player game. What I'm talking about is partners. In the first Paper Mario game, they don't get a health bar, but they do play a large part in battles. They each get their own attacks, and you can get more by collecting these blocks found throughout the game. Cooper can launch a fire shell at multiple enemies. Lady Boo can turn you invisible. They don't just play a part in battles, though. They also have abilities you can use for various purposes outside of battle. One big feature of Nintendo is that they are one of the best in the business at making movement in video games feel really good. Now, a lot of RPGs aren't really known for particularly noteworthy overworld control systems. You're really just getting from point A to point B most of the time. Paper Mario's overworld has a lot more than that, though. With simple platforming, puzzle solving, a really awesome feeling spin move that speeds you up, movement in Paper Mario feels really good, and your partners are given more purpose by giving you new ways to explore the environment. You can grab things across a gap with Kooper, fly across that gap with Paracoopa, destroy cracked walls with Babam. The list goes on. They also play a part in attacking first. The game finds every opportunity to make its overworld engaging and intuitive. So while Paper Mario has a lot of unique features, one feature that isn't so unique, ironically enough, is one of the most rewarding features in the game. Most RPGs have some kind of experience system, and this one comfortably adjusts as you progress through the game. Not hard considering the low numbers, but I'll explain anyway. Defeating enemies gives you experience points. Harder challenges like boss fights give you more, while weaker enemies from earlier areas in the game will gradually give you less and less. Every time you reach 100 points, you get the option to improve health, flower power, which is a cost applied to special attacks, and badge power. While the engaging action command system and the enticing badge system are very fun, I think the XP system is really the glue that holds everything together. It may be the biggest thing that the game has in common with any other RPG, but it really grounds everything else that makes the game special in its genre. It helps to add a real feeling of improvement and accomplishment as the game moves on and adds huge motivation to keep you jumping into battles and engaging with the game's unique mechanics. It's probably the biggest motivation to engage in battles with these enemies. Paper Mario has earned itself a very dedicated fan base. And this fan base even has subcategories. There's a whole community dedicated to speedrunning and finding glitches, for example. Paper Mario fans are very passionate, and some swear by the first two Paper Mario games as the de facto way to play Paper Mario. Though some of them are me. I am some of them. You have all the underlying structure mechanically of what people have attached themselves to, but unlike some Nintendo games, it's not just the mechanics. The story and how it's executed is a huge part of this. Specifically, its endearing characters and some of the ridiculous scenarios they set up. Take, for example, Peach reading Bowser's diary, or this penguin faking his own murder in murder mystery fashion. This game has a lot of fun surprises. All your partners have their own backstory as well. The main tutorial bits at the beginning of this game takes place with Goombario's family, for example. They have some pretty fun story-driven gameplay scenarios as well. For example, you enter this sort of western theme area, the earth shakes, everyone hides, and Hubba Bubba shows up to eat ghosts, prompting the start of a stealth section where you use Boo's disappear ability to hide while you explore this mansion. Hubba Bubba can't be hurt until you find his heart, so you have to stealth around him and eventually run away from him. Keeping with the storybook theme, the game plays in chapters, and at the start of every chapter, you get to play as Peach for a bit, who seeks out hints to each chapter to communicate some hints to Mario on where to go next or what to do. This mainly consists of sneaking around the castle and doing various tasks, sometimes snooping on conversations, or reading Bowser's diary. My favorite Peach bit in the game is making this cake for this big shy guy and watching him lose his absolute mind when he eats it. We call that a foodgasm. Like, you know when you eat a sweet banana after having some bitter coffee and the game has a great flow to it and it never really falters from it in any significant way. Not too badly anyway. Now, it's rare to find such a long game without something fetch questy, and near the end of the game, they do have you going to pretty much every location in the game again. Oh yeah, also the toy box has you entering and exiting a lot. I don't know, it didn't bother me, but it's a common complaint, so I figured I'd mention it. With weird stuff like this, I really have one rule. Don't bore me, and don't piss me off. Like, it didn't piss me off, and at least it interested me. It also prompted an excuse to start mixing foods, and to be honest, I actually forgot I was still working on finishing a chapter, just going back and forth for ingredients to try stuff. It's a fun side gimmick.
So, spoiler alert for the ending. You fight Bowser.
Yeah, I know, it sounds lame, right? I don't know why, but they raise the stakes so high here. Just with the sequence they go through with Bowser being invincible, Peach and the small star having to fight by their side, everyone rooting for Mario, just the feeling of size and weight, it's all here, and as final fights go, it does not disappoint.
Well, this game does so many things right. It's not perfect.
One criticism floating around for the first Paper Mario game is that it's another Mario game with grass, desert, snow, volcano, you know.
Never seen that in a Mario game before.
It wasn't the first, and it absolutely wasn't the last. Not every area was like that, though. I thought Hubba Bubba's area was pretty unique, for example. I also love the look of the flower field with the beanstalk. Also note, we're many Mario games deep, but this is the first Paper Mario game, technically, if that means anything. It does look a little worse, however, when you consider how much it took from Super Mario RPG. In my own personal case, this was the first Mario RPG I played, and I was hooked the whole time. Now, people will have their opinions, and they're gonna say what they're gonna say, but if you love something, you love something. So, take the opinions
With a grain of shit.
Goodbye.